Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Health Babes podcast. We have Dr. Sam Rader. She is the creator of the Source Code, an approach that leaves behind traditional psychology to focus on the spiritual dimension of healing. Dr. Sam believes that our early childhood experience writes a code in our unconscious, which then determines the way the rest of our story unfolds. She helps people rewrite their code for a healthier, more beautiful life. Dr. Sam's book, The 12 Coping Styles, will debut in January of 2023 with Harper Wave Publishers. Welcome, Sam. We're so happy to have you.
Thanks, Crystal. I'm so excited to be here.
Yes.
So why don't we get started with you kind of introducing us to how you got involved with working in psychology?
Like what inspired me to become a psychologist type thing?
Yeah.
Oh, that's a fun story, actually. So this was many, many moons ago, maybe almost 20 years ago. I started my own therapy for the first time in my early 20s. And it was with a man. And pretty soon into our work, one day he said, "So what's the plan?"
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, "I don't know what you're talking about. What do you mean?" And he said, "Your life, the plan." And I was like, no one's ever asked me that. Right. And I had no idea, but it's like, as soon as he asked, this knowing opened up in me, and I was like, I think I want to do what you do. And it was a complete shock to me.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, "Okay, great. So you're going to need to start applying to grad schools right away, start the process." It was this very beautiful paternal energy that just sort of oriented me to this frame of like, what are you going to do with your life? You're 22 years old. You've got to sort of get on it. So that was my journey. That's how it began. And then I went to school and got my PhD, and here I am leaving that world behind.
Yes. So can you talk a little bit about, you talk a lot, and I love your Instagram page, by the way. It's great. You share a lot of awesome information, but you talk so much about how the first 5 years of our life makes such an impact. Can you dive into that a little bit?
Yeah. And this is where I'm really grateful for my background in psychology is we learn a lot about the stages of childhood psychological development.
Right.
And, I've kind of come up with my own theory, but my theory is absolutely rooted in other theories, starting with, Freud and all the way up to more recent theories about how our little brains are developing and how our personalities are developing in our first 5 years of life. And we're sort of born hardwired to go through certain stages of development where we're trying to integrate certain aspects of our personality. And if I was going to talk about it from a more spiritual perspective, which is where I come from now, we all are born whole with source energy, but we're kind of trying to integrate all the aspects of source. Like, do I get to have my full essence of being? And so at each of these stages of development, we're trying to integrate an aspect. So for example, when we're very first born, we're just trying to learn, is this place safe? Is Earth the right place for me? Is my family the right place for me? Is it a match? Do I feel understood? Do I feel a sense of belonging? Do I get to be connected, right? So being connected is one aspect of embodying source energy. And if we don't feel understood in our first days on Earth, we end up becoming what I call disconnected and adopting a coping style. So there's 12 coping styles that we adopt if we don't get what we need at a certain developmental stage. So the different developmental needs are things like, do I belong and am I understood so I can be connected? Am I safe? So that I can feel aligned with this world? Am I allowed to express my sensuality, sexuality, and competition in a safe, supported way that's contained? Am I allowed to be separate and have my own mind and identity that's not fused with others? Am I allowed to need others and be dependent on them and be able to feed and be supported and nourished? And the list goes on. So there's basically 12 things we're trying to integrate about ourselves. And if we don't get exactly what we need during that phase of development, which, by the way, our parents have no idea about these phases of development. So it's really easy to mess it up, especially because our parents' own coping styles are getting in the way. And so if we don't get what we need, we have to adapt by adopting what I call a coping style, which is basically a defense mechanism. So if we're not connected with and we don't feel connected, we're going to have to find a way to disconnect. And we can like live up in our heads or be kind of spacey or just always feel like on the outside looking in at life. There's many ways we can disconnect, but these are the defenses that we bring on. And the work that I do with source code is to sort of rewrite the glitchy code. Our coping styles or defenses are the glitchy coding in our unconscious, so that we can return to that wholeness and that full expression of source energy at our core.
Yeah. So can you talk a little bit more about the source code?
Yeah. So I borrowed the terminology from computer programming language. So in computer programming, a source code is the coding that determines how a program will function. It's the original coding, and it's kind of written more in plain English. It's just kind of the programmer saying, what do I want this thing to be? How is it going to function? What is the main functionality of this program going to be? So the way I see it is that when we're little, but in our first 5 years of life, we're like little sponges, and we're soaking up everything that happens to us, everything that we're told and showed by our early environment, both explicitly told and also just implicitly told by the way things are. And we learn about ourselves. Who am I? And what is this world like? And what are relationship dynamics like? And how does money work? And how does sexuality work? And we have all these sort of unconscious burning questions about what is this world and what is my place in it? And based on the environment that we're living in, that impresses itself upon our unconscious, and it writes a code. And that source code then becomes sort of the algorithm that runs the entire matrix of our experience as adults. And I have a very kind of out there theory of our entire lived experience, which is that it's holographic projection from our unconscious minds. So when we have the source code written in a certain way, we keep reliving the exact same patterning that we had as little ones. So if we had a paternal figure that would always drop us, and then we encoded this thing about the masculine as a dropping thing. And then as adults, we always find these masculine figures that drop and drop and drop, right? Yeah. But that's not everyone's experience of the masculine. If someone had a very present, containing, supportive father, they have a very different experience with the masculine growing up, right? So we just keep reenacting and reliving this same coding. Now, some of the coding our parents give us is, good enough coding. It's supporting us. It's working for us. And some of the coding is glitchy. And so what I do is I help people determine where the code is glitchy in their unconscious, and then we rewrite it together. And then the miracles that happen from there are so insane, because it is a hologram. And so when you rewrite the coding, all of a sudden masculine starts showing up in an entirely new way. And it's like, you don't need to meddle with the concrete world. As soon as you change the coding, the entire matrix that appears changes. So it's very witchy and exciting and profound. It's very quantum.
Yeah.
That sounds so interesting. And that makes so much sense. Can you talk about those 12 coping styles?
Yes. So I want to work with you guys on how best to do that, because it can get a little tedious because there's so many of them and so many subtypes, and then you can kind of get lost in it. How would you guys
like briefly just go through them and just explain like how, how people love to just relate to things, right? So maybe go into just a little bit of each one, and then we can kind of go into it a little bit.
Okay, perfect. So I'm going to do my best to sum these suckers up. So I'll go through them chronologically from newborn to 5 years old.
Yeah.
So there's 2 newborn injuries that we can have, psychological injuries. And the first coping style is the one I've been using as an example. I call it the disconnected style. And it's when, as infants, newborns, we didn't feel attuned to, we didn't feel understood. So our parents weren't sort of picking up what we were putting down. We were feeling lonely and we got left alone, or we needed a diaper change, but instead we got a bottle, or it's like we didn't feel heard or understood. Yeah. So the way to cope with that, there's 4 subtypes. One is to become floaty and become sort of dissociative and live in a world of imagination where everything is a fit for us in that other place, and live in our minds and imaginations. Another way to deal with it is to become sort of stiff and to tense ourselves and turn away from life and get more interested in virtual worlds like fantasy novels, video games, computer programming, that kind of thing. Another way to deal with it is to become what I call flighty, which is that we never fully land. We never commit to anything. It's like maybe the next city, the next job, the next partner will be the right one, where it feels like that Goldilocks just right fit, but this one never gets to feel right. And then the 4th one's really interesting, which is one that I have. By the way, I had all 12, which is what allowed me to be the
Yes.
conduit for the work. But the fourth one is to become what I call masked, which is we sort of learn how to over attune to others. We develop this hyper developed mirror neuron system, and they weren't going to understand us, but we can work overtime to understand them. And then the loop of communication almost works. And so those are the 4 subtypes of being disconnected. And the antidote is to become connected. And to do that is to really learn how to drop into our bodies, into the present moment, into our relationships, and to take the risk to repair ruptures. So when we're disconnected, that beautiful process of rupture and repair and communication never got to happen. We didn't trust that if things got misunderstood, that we could find our way back to understanding. But just the same way that when you go to the gym and you're building a muscle, you have to tear the muscle fibers in order for them to build back and grow stronger. Relationship bonds are the same way. So we have to take the risk to share our feelings, share our needs, share where we felt misunderstood, and then we can be understood. And then we can go, oh, wait, maybe this place is safe for me. Maybe I can connect here. Maybe I can belong and feel understood. So that's one of the 12. Mm-hmm. Do you want me to keep going?
Yeah, just briefly touch on the others.
Okay, briefly. So the second one is also a newborn wound. I call it the frictive wound. It's when we didn't get enough physical and emotional containment. So we weren't held in a way that we could feel supported enough to let go. If we're held in that way, we grow a psychic skin and we feel contained and we know that we exist as a fact. We develop what's called object permanence, where we know things don't disappear just because they're out of sight. But if we don't get enough of that kind of support and holding, then we're kind of like a clingy baby monkey that's forever at risk of sort of fragmenting or falling through space with nothing to catch us. So we have to create this frictive, by rubbing up against everything in order to create that valence that keeps us tethered to existence, because we feel like some existential threat of being wiped out or forgotten, disappearing. So in order to create the friction, we live in a state of constant intensity. Our thoughts are always going a mile a minute. Our schedules are always very full. We're very phobic of empty space and time. We always try to fill it up. And the antidote for frictive, once we do feel that support and grounding and connection and solidity, is actually to be spacious. So instead of avoiding open space, we learn how to identify with the spaciousness that's within all of us, all of our atoms and all of creation. There's a lot of empty space, and that, instead of being we fear, it becomes our new safe haven. Mm-hmm. Okay, so then we've got a couple infant wounds. We've got the omnipotent coping style, which is when our parents weren't able to help us work through difficult emotions. So anytime something feels bad, it feels all bad and it feels intolerable. We kind of have no psychic skin. Everything that we experience feels like us. We never developed a boundary between ourselves and the world. So we're the quote unquote empaths. We're the ones who feel everything very deeply, the highly sensitive person. A noise can make us want to kill someone. We can very quickly go to rage. We can also very quickly be soothed again, just like an infant, because we're stuck sort of pre-6 months developmentally. We end up looking like bullies, but we're actually just scared babies in an adult's body. And I call it omnipotent because we don't know how to work through our emotions inside and self-soothe. We try to be omni, all, potent, powerful. So we try to everything outside. So these are the people that are really bossy, demanding, pushy. And the antidote to omnipotence is to learn to be aligned. And the way to align is to turn toward the thing that we don't like, that feels intolerable, and open our hearts to it and accept and embrace and connect with it. And then all of a sudden, it's no longer scary and we can integrate it, and we grow a sort of psychic skin or a callus, and we're no longer as sensitive and reactive.
Wow. Yeah.
The next one is, I call it the deprived style. It's also an infant wound. It's a feeding injury. And basically, the psychologist Margaret Mahler talks about this idea of the good breast and the bad breast during infancy. So this is a symbolic breast. It can be the literal breast of the mother, but it's also just symbolically, like if the baby's getting all the love they need, then they're having this good breast experience where all feels right in the world, and they feel good inside because they're being reacted to with such loving care from the outside, and they just feel like, oh, I must be good, and my hunger is good, and it draws good things toward me spontaneously. When I'm hungry, I get fed with so much love, that kind of thing. if we didn't have that because we felt our parents' back was proverbially or literally turned to us because they were distracted or depressed or anxious, then we took in what's like the bad milk and we learned how to feed on the bad. And so we don't actually know how to digest good things. So if someone says, I love you, we're like, yeah, right. We don't know how to take in the good. Yeah. So we identify with the bad. We feel inside that we're somehow bad or broken or empty, like there's something wrong with me and other people get the good stuff, but not me. Mm-hmm. And so what we do to emerge from deprived is we learn how to open our openings and finally take in the good little by little, because it's hard to learn how to digest something new. And we digest the good by the digestive enzymes of appreciation and gratitude and savoring. And slowly over time, we retrain our emotional digestive tract to know what to do with the good. And we are able to digest and assimilate the good so that we feel good inside. Wow. So the antidote to deprived is being loved, and to know we are loved and to feel full of love.
I've definitely met people who have trouble taking compliments, you know, like I'm such a words of affirmation. Like I compliment people a lot, and sometimes you can tell they get very uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm. They don't know what to do with it.
Right.
Yeah. I'm a person, they either have to like find a way to turn it sour so that they can digest it because they only know how to digest the bad. Like, well, you only said that because right?
Right.
Yeah. That makes
Or they just have to spit it out like, oh, no, thank you. No,
Yeah. They'll say, no, I'm not,
Yeah. And that's really how they feel inside. They feel broken or bad or empty inside, which has nothing to do with who they really are. It's just circumstantial that they weren't given that vital caring with the love and attention and adoration that they needed as infants.
That's so sad. Yeah. Like now it makes so much sense.
Yeah. But luckily all of these things are easily healable. Mm-hmm. So my work is mostly through working with these symbols like, oh, something feels so bad inside. It's hard to imagine that something good could come inside or that the insides could feel good, right? Really speaking to the symbols, and also doing embodiment practices to help them start to feel what goodness feels like from the inside. And then all of a sudden we create a new emotional set point and they're not deprived anymore. They are loved, and their whole lives shift to reflect that. All of a sudden, the friendships they've always wanted are there. The relationship they've always wanted is where. The money starts coming in, because deprives always live on that zero balance where they never have money.
Yeah, this is what I love about work that you do, because it's like there's so many people struggling with things, and if they just understood where it started, right, and then we're taught how to, change that, it would just change their entire life. So we try to bring so much awareness to people like you, because we just love this.
Thank you. It's such an honor.
Yeah. And you can have a combination of a lot of coping styles, right?
Yes. Most people have many of them, because none of our parents got it right 100% of the time. I had all 12.
Yeah.
It's rare for people to have all 12. Some do, but usually we have at least 3, usually like 3 to 8. I would say is normal.
Yeah. Yeah. So once you become aware of these patterns, how can you start to rewrite the code?
Well, simply, like you said, the awareness is a really big part, because I've been being shown by the powers that be about one of the aspects of quantum technology that really shifts us is simply to name something and feel mirrored in it, to have a clear sense of, where am I? What is this thing? Because we can be swimming in this awful feeling our whole lives and never really know how to define it. And therefore we can't really get out of it. So simply by going, oh, I'm deprived. It's nothing about me. This bad feeling inside isn't me. It's because I wasn't, oh, got it. All of a sudden that alone really starts to shift it. And sort of the more that we commit to the hero's journey of making our way out of each style, the universe starts conspiring to support us. That's what I found in my 10 years where I had to live through each style and find the resolution. That's why my book has taken 10 years to write. It's not because the writing itself took very long at all. It's that the gods were like, you have to live it, find your way to the other side, and then you can write each chapter.
That's so awesome, Sam, though, that you were taking this time to do that so that you can really embody that and really help people, because this is very new. It's just going to be great for people.
Thank you. I feel really good about it. I'm really excited.
The more that we learn about this stuff, the more self-conscious you become as a parent.
I know.
Yeah. Well, can we talk about that a little bit? Because
Yeah.
I have so
wanted
much
to,
compassion for that.
yeah. And that's what I basically wanted to say is like, how do we make sure we're not messing our own children up,
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, my book is a whole year away from coming out, but I do think that once parents are empowered with the information of what are these developmental stages and what does a kid need during them, it's going to be a lot easier to support your children. But the other interesting thing is like, without the wounds, there's no hero's journey.
Mm-hmm.
So you're kind of setting the parameters of their video game that they get to then play and pass the levels for the rest of their life of healing. So it's okay to wound your kids. It's okay. That's what gives them their journey.
Yeah.
And, good luck not wounding your kids.
Right.
I know.
It's pretty much impossible.
It really is. It is such a cluster sometimes, isn't it?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, the other thing is the best thing we can do for our parenting is to work on ourselves first.
Yeah.
Because whatever we're not resolving in ourselves is getting passed down through unconscious transmission. And sometimes often I see that if we resolve one of these coping styles within ourselves and we start to embody the new frequency, our kid just immediately joins us in the new hologram because they were just like a part of us in a way.
Mm-hmm.
So doing the work on ourselves first is kind of the most important thing.
Yeah.
So true. Cause like I said, you're learning, when you're doing like inner child work, say, you're learning, okay, I'm like that because this was how I was parented. I need to not do that to my kids.
Yep.
Or maybe, to a different degree or, whatever.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It does help a lot when you're working on yourself as a parent.
It's so beautiful. Yeah. I don't have children, so I bow to you and your courage to do it. I think I've raised a lot of adults as my children as a psychologist and source coach.
I love that. Yes.
Yeah. But I haven't had concrete children of my own.
It's a wild ride, let me tell you.
It sure is.
Really hear that.
So you were briefly talking about, and there's a lot more of the coping styles that you go into in your book. So tell us a little bit more about your book.
So the book will be out in a year. Luckily, right now on my website, you can go and take a peek at all 12 of the styles. I have information on each one, like what it is, how it looks now, what the antidotes are, what all the subtypes are. It's all right there. So you can play with it. I also have like a free coping styles pocket guide that you can download. And that also includes journaling prompts for you to start working with the material. But the book itself will be an explanation, a very in-depth explanation of how each style gets formed during childhood, what it looks like now, and then what are all the modalities for healing it. So it's beautiful not only to assess and work with your own stuff, but I've heard from so many people that it helps understand others as well. Because you're like, why is my partner always ... Yeah. And it's like, oh, this is why. And it's from this awful thing in their childhood. Oh, I can have compassion now. It feels so different now.
Yeah.
Do you feel though that like sometimes, because this is what I'm learning as I work on myself, that what you just said, sometimes I do that and then I give people too much rope. You know what I mean? I'm like, I feel sorry for them because I can see why they are the way that they are. So then I allow that behavior to continue. But really, it just because, whatever happened to them, it doesn't mean that you should have to be the one to suffer for it either.
Yeah. Something I've been really working with of late is that beautiful balance of fierce boundaries with compassion.
Yeah.
So compassion doesn't mean we indulge something or allow something. And sometimes the most compassionate thing to do is to stop someone, like enough.
Yeah.
No, right? Like that's not okay. I love you. I understand why you're doing that. I have all the compassion in the world, but we're not going to do it that way anymore. It's not okay. And to really hold that incredible unified polarity of the the fierce masculine boundary with the loving feminine holding, that's really, I find, where the deepest transformation can happen, both in the healing spaces and also in just normal relationships outside of healing spaces.
Yeah, I love that. That's like the perfect thing, that
I can't
that
wait to
balance.
read your book too, because me and Bex got into a lot of inner child work lately, and this is going to be the next step.
Yay. Well, I can always send you guys some chapters in advance if you'd like. If you tell me which ones you identify with, I can pop them over.
Yes. Oh, we would love that. Yes. Well, where else can people find you? We know you're on Instagram. What's your Instagram handle?
It's Dr. Sam Rader. That's DrSamRader.
Okay. And then we'll link to that guide that you have, because I'm sure so many people would love that and your website.
Yay. I love that. I love supporting people with that. Yeah. I love when people start their transformational journeys from just downloading that. They're like, I can't believe this freebie's changing my life.
I know people are going to be chomping at the bit for your book, I'm sure. So, well, thank you so much for coming on. This has been great. And we were so excited to have you and have you share, stuff that people just aren't talking about enough.
It is truly my pleasure, you guys. I think it's so great what you're doing and spreading awareness and supporting people who want to know more and are hungry to heal. That's so exciting.
Yes.
And beyond just healing, at a certain point, we're well. And then it's really just kind of liberation and integration and wholeness, wellness and health and joy.
It all matters.
Yes.
It does. It all plays a part. So we got to work on all of it. Well, thank you everybody for listening. And don't forget to leave a review. It literally takes 2 seconds, and mention this episode if you think that there's someone that could benefit from it. Thank you guys for listening. Have a great day.
Bye, y'all.